You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
What physical basketball
I was at the game.
versus
You were
physical
not.
fouling.
You watched it on YouTube.
Anyway.
I saw the game. I watched the game.
Well, we're here. I'm Bob Moats. Welcome to X's and Joes, the podcast dedicated to decoding the winning formula in college basketball.
And I'm Mike Wiemuth, welcoming you to episode 53. What is Darian DeVries running? With special guests Brian Tonsoni and Tony Adragna, recorded on the evening of Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Well, gentlemen, welcome to the Coaches Show. I love these because, for me, these are the episodes that require the least amount of work on my part in terms of preparation. So I'm looking forward to all the wisdom you guys can share that will allow me to sit back and enjoy this.
Well, thanks for having us on. Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know if we're really going to impress anybody with our knowledge either, but we'll try.
Yeah.
You're better than the guy that usually does it. You're better than the guy that usually does it. That was obvious. So guys, what's going on new in your lives? Tony, you first. You're finishing up your first season at Greenwood Christian. One of the, and I think just won 4 out of 5, right?
Yeah, playing some good ball right now, which is exciting. We kind of talked since the summer that we want to be playing our best ball in late February into March, and lo and behold, we are. Tough 1A schedule, but we're not running away from it. And it's preparing us for a state tournament run, which we're excited about. Draws on Sunday, having the squad over Sunday, so that's exciting. But yeah, 1-4-5 and heading into a fun stretch here. So I'm really excited about that. First time doing it as a head coach, so couldn't be more thrilled.
So the start of March Madness. What are you guys having to eat?
What is my wife making? That's a good question. I think pizza.
Oh,
and I don't think she's making it.
Even better. Even better. Even better. Coach Tonsoni, what's new with you?
Not a whole lot, man. Just enjoying basketball, getting to go to a lot of college basketball games with Delphi Bracketology, putting a lot of miles on the vehicle, but enjoyable to see college basketball. Saw a really good Michigan team the other night over here in Mackey. And our bracket guys are really busting it. And I just got off a podcast with a fellow teacher that we're doing 2 podcasts a week here until bracket, and enjoying this warm weather and want to get out on the golf course here pretty soon. So all of that and trying to still be motivated to teach in the last 60 days of my career. So that's what's going on.
Congratulations to you on reaching that milestone in life and, dusting off your golf clubs, which is always an essential part of that that exercise. So real quick for the two of you, anything in the college basketball world, and I know, Coach Tonsoni just mentioned you just saw Illinois and Michigan up close. I know Tony's still watching games when he finds the time, when he's not watching his team or his opponents. What's surprising you, starting with Coach Tonsoni, what's surprising you this year about what you're seeing? Anything jumping out?
No, well, I'll just say my last visit there with Michigan, like the versatility of their bigs. There's always a debate about, do you play small, do you play big? Well, how about playing skilled? There's a lot of skill in the college basketball game, and boy, Michigan runs 3 guys who are really 5s out there, and they can guard different people and they can shoot the basketball. Are there one-dimensional post players? Toppin unfortunately gets hurt. Yes, where he's just in the post, but you're seeing skilled athletes now, all around college basketball, and that's impressive to me. And I think that's ultimately, we're going to talk a lot about IU, but that's the recipe. Can you get guys that can be multi-dimensional in their game, can drive, can shoot, can post, and then pick and pop from 3. Like if you can put a roster together like that, I think that's what is making college basketball a lot of fun is just the high amount of skill development that's gone on. And it's not just a guard being able to shoot the three. It's not just a center being able to handle the basketball and do those things. That makes it quite enjoyable, quite difficult to guard, but fun to watch.
Right. Tony, what are you seeing? Anything fun and exciting and you're watching?
Yeah, I've been really intrigued by just it's more of a trends in the last 5 years and what stays and what goes. Like 10 years ago, maybe even 7, 8 years ago, like the continuity ball screen was like the hottest thing in college basketball. And now you basically don't see it because then that causes you to clog up the lane. Now everybody's kind of going with the 5 out. And so what's interesting to me is just seeing like what are teams doing that's a little bit different? How have they tweaked it? Instead of a continuity ball screen, what are they doing? I've seen some different variations of flex. So what's old is new again, which is kind of interesting too. And I'm a Southport grad, so Southport made the state title in 1990. They played Damon Bailey. And that was back when they had the morning night for state, and all they ran was flex, but they ran it at the elbows and like the short corners, and like it was there was no space. I don't even know how they ever scored. But now you look at where the flex has gone and how spaced out teams are running it, and how they're not even setting the down screen. I saw it's just an interchange now instead of the down screen from the wing in the corner. So I'm just interested to see like. There's obviously only so many things you can do in the game, but how teams are just tweaking it to kind of fit the modern style, if you will, is kind of what's been exciting for me to continue to monitor.
Yeah, I would agree. It's funny because, to that point, and I mean, I'm looking at Coach Tonsoni when you were talking about the old flex, because I think both of us saw that throughout our coaching career. And even in kind of the when you go to the elementary level, you would still see coaches running that type of continuity pattern motion offenses up until maybe 10, 15 years ago. And now you're even seeing at the younger levels, everyone's spreading out, seeing on the high school level too. I know there's still varsity coaches that are running that type of, they're running it with more space, but they're still running that sort of pattern offense. And a lot of it's just a matter of it now seems like everyone's kind of making their own sort of weird Asian fusion chili out of all this. Like, you're going to take some Princeton concepts, throw it with some ball screen concepts, throw it with some Alabama and 8 oats concepts. And, here's, Kung Pao tilapia, you've got something that's really interesting. And I find it fascinating watching the game and then also trying to say, ooh, I love this. Ooh, wow, that's fun to run. Like, we were running fingers series yesterday in an open gym. I've been running the fingers concept, trying to create gaps, and just watching Tony over the years. You've kind of gone in that road. So it's translating to all levels of basketball. But yeah, it's just interesting how much space. We're going to talk about that probably a pretty good amount when we talk about IU here in a minute. But since Tony brought up 1990, we might as well discuss the best place to find stuff that looks like it came from 1990, home field apparel.
Exactly. Bob, did you see the latest drops? VCU and UMBC were finally added. That was like, I didn't even know that. The thing about home field's amazing is that obviously they have so many schools, but there's still a few, I guess, that have been the licensing issues that have not allowed them to join the team. But apparently, both the two Virginia schools, were just added, and the stuff really looked pretty cool on there. I don't know if you saw that.
I did, and what's really interesting, as you're saying, it's like there's just such a diversity of like even if you're not really a VCU fan, some of that stuff is really cool, and you actually want to research the story behind it as to like why does that shirt, why does that phrase mean something in that culture and in that campus mindset. And I saw that drop today, and UMBC as well, which which again, I mean, if you remember UMBC, that's one of the great stories of college basketball from a few years back. But it's everyone, but you can definitely check that out and everything else, including the extensive amount of Indiana University football national championship garb at www.homefield.com, or when you're in Bloomington, after you stumble out of Nick's or walk across the street from the upstairs pub, you can walk into Home Field at Tracks and check out what they have there.
Yeah. I've said that home field needs to publish a list of obscure holidays so IU fans can still have some fallback excuse to keep splurging more on those national championship gear that they keep coming out with.
Arbor
It's like,
Day's right around the corner, kids.
exactly. Of course, honey, I had to buy that IU bomber jacket. It's Angolan Independence Day.
Mike, you're talking about every Thursday in my realm, right? Every
Exactly.
Thursday is one of those holidays to buy home
Yeah.
field. I did. It took every ounce of my being not to hit submit for the VCU Ram head hoodie, and I still may do it before I go to bed tonight.
Given to temptation.
So
Yeah.
be like
It's
Coach,
just
go to
money.
home field. Yeah. They'll put more in your account. Just trust them.
So coming up next on X's and Joe's, we'll dive right in. We'll discuss some of the metrics that we've been seeing for IU in this inaugural Darren DeVries season. Next on the next segment.
Hoosier Nation, are you tired of the same old takes? Say hello to Crimson Cast, the podcast that actually knows IU sports. Hosted by Galen Clavio and Scott Caulfield, they serve up sharp analysis, real talk, and just enough sarcasm to keep things interesting. Game previews? Check. Instant reactions? Double check. History lessons that make even our losses worth remembering? You bet. So whether you're tailgating at Memorial Stadium, pacing around Assembly Hall, or just avoiding Purdue fans, Crimson Cast has you covered. Search Crimson Cast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and join the conversation today.
Welcome back to X's and Joe's. I'm Bob Moats with my good friend Mike Wiemuth, and we have two other of our good friends, Coach Brian Tonsoni and Coach Tony Adragna, here to talk about what's going on at IU from not just even an X's and O's standpoint, but just kind of the overall program, like how the coaching staff is kind of working, getting their roster, playing the way that they're playing at this point, what we're seeing trend wise, but also just kind of as we're kind of going through the process of how the teams really kind of come together. And I'll start with this. Like for me, IU has been very interesting this year in that there are moments where, for the most part, they are metrically very pleasant, would be a word I would use. There's a lot of great things to see in metrics, even though you see some isolated plays or isolated possessions or series or like a segment of play where it just feels like, man, this just isn't. It may not be. It can be kind of quickly looked at and be, are we sure this is it? But I think a lot of it, when you look at the aggregate, they don't look that. They actually look like a pretty good basketball team because they are a pretty good basketball team.
Yeah, I think I've enjoyed watching this year because I just think there's a lot of things that are going on, and what's happening is Indiana's beating the teams they should beat for the most part, and playing really good basketball, and they're able to compete against some good teams with a roster that probably needs some additions going forward in the types of players that coach is going to get in. But they run a variety of things. And not only do they run a variety of things, that they have understood what their struggles are, and whether it be at halftime or in between one game to the other, they try to make those adjustments in what they're doing and what they're running, coming out of a timeout. There's so many things that are good that are happening for the Indiana basketball, especially offense. I know we're going to talk a little defense as well. I think what will happen is you'll see better results, wins, and losses once you really focus in on that roster construction. But I think this year shows me that the program is set, and what is being done schematically is pretty solid in a general sense. I know we'll get into more specifics down the road in the podcast.
Yeah, completely agree
Tony?
with everything Coach. Yeah, everything Coach is saying, I agree with in terms of scheme and concepts and scouts and how things are being utilized against certain opponents that aren't against others. Like it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You can really tell that things are being tailored to individual games and game plans. You can tell that there's a coherent plan of what they're trying to attack, which is really cool to see. Like, and sometimes obviously we're not privy to what they're trying to attack, but you can generally get a good idea. I think there was a couple different film room segments where people showcased like that kind of Peja action that they call it that Indiana ran, where one time Tucker DeVries got a back screen from Lamar Wilkerson, and then he gets a layup. Next time he sets that back screen, and Lamar comes off the dribble handoff and knocks down a three. Like that type of stuff is what's been really cool to watch from Indiana's standpoint. I do think, like Coach said, there obviously are some talent deficiencies in certain areas. They still lack somebody that can really get downhill and create for others on a consistent level. But I think the scheme is there to kind of try to neutralize that and not being able to do that, while also understanding that like they're going to go through some scoring lulls. There's going to be times where if shots aren't falling, they're going to struggle. You know, we've seen that in a few games this season. So overall, I'm really intrigued and excited about what DeVries is building and how he's building it. And, obviously, as they say, like sometimes it takes the Jimmies and Joes, and he's got to go get those guys too. Like that's part of his job. But overall, with what he's got this year and how they're building it, I'm pretty pleased with what it looks like on the floor.
Yeah, dovetailing off of what you said about the scheme, Tony. One thing I think that what stands out, at least from my perspective on the coaching side, is that this is one of the first years in, I guess, maybe over at least like 8 years of IU basketball where there's been many plays that I've watched that does not result in an actual bucket, and maybe even result maybe in a possible turnover or tip away, where I look and say that was actually really good stuff. Like that was actually run well. And you can actually tell the intentionality of what the coach was trying to do. And so I think that's one thing that's kind of stand out is that even a lot of the plays that are not actually end up in scoring are actually well designed. And you can say like, okay, yeah, that's modern basketball. That's actually innovative. And that's something that you could definitely see that would be attractive to recruits going down the road, since we're talking about, trying to get, a better roster in here. So I think once you do get some of those roster enhancements that, you might anticipate going into year two, so those plays will actually start resulting in more buckets down the road. So,
yeah, and what I think is – oh, sorry, Bob.
No, go ahead. Keep going, Tony. You're good.
Yeah, what I love about it is that you can tell it's conceptual in nature. So it's not just, hey, we're going to set this cross screen, we're going to post this guy, and then that's the play. It's like, all right, well, if this happens, then do this. If this happens, do this. Like they're just playing out of concepts, and then they have the freedom to make reads and things off of that, which I love to watch because it's not robotic in nature. It's hard to scout from an Indiana standpoint. Like when you're playing out of concepts, you can try to take certain concepts away, but generally you're going to have counters to those that you're working on through the season. So that's been the most intriguing part to me is that, of course they've got sets and ATOs and things that they're running, but a lot of it they're just playing out of concepts and then saying, take what the defense gives you.
Example.
Go ahead.
An example, Tony, that I liked is the other night. I mean, you get beat by 20 over at Illinois, but in the second half, they've run a lot of scorer-on-scorer screening, right? And that's going to look at different ways. Earlier in the year, it was a lot of corner pin screens. DeVries would go down, and then you'd either curl and then pop out. In the Illinois game, they set flares up from the curl. And the first time they went over the top defensively, and I think Wilkerson wrapped it, what I call wrap, or just cut off of that, and I think got a layup off of that. And then the next time, or is whatever order, but one time they switched it, and then Wilkerson stayed out in the corner, got the ball, and ripped it for a layup and an and one. I think that was the first 5 points of the second half. I didn't see that any at the first half. Right, but you're playing off of, okay, that's a concept that they're going to run when that ball gets to Alexis or Bailey at the high post, and then you got scorer on the same side, so same side action there. And I was really fascinated. I was on the post-game show, and we were talking about it. the offense was good, and Coach DeVries even said he thought they ran better offense in the second half when they scored a lot less points. That's kind of what we're both talking about here is conceptually they're doing good things, but sometimes that doesn't result in points, and each game is a little different with who you're playing against. But you can see that it's there coming from the coaching staff, which is a breath of fresh air for me.
So we're going to go ahead and flip the segments real quick because I'm going to go and cube the video up because we flowed right into this. Let's like Tony's saying conceptually, where you make the read and you go through this. And one of the things like before I kind of jump in with the film and kind of get your guys, because we have several clips to kind of show some of the evolution and kind of how this thing has changed. I've always kind of thought, as I thought about how do I describe this offense to people, I call it Princeton-esque. And it's not pure Princeton by any stretch of the imagination. It's more of you have some Princeton concepts, some Euro concepts. Again, we were talking about Kung Pao, tilapia, that construct. But it's more of a thing where he's taken all these little pieces and then he's run certain families of actions, and you'll see them run two or three out of the same family of actions back to back to back, and finding new things out of them. And it's interesting, Tony. I thought it was interesting you brought up because you're seeing this because I'm thinking this too. A lot of this is done off reads. It's not like Dan Hurley, where he runs such a structured off-ball playbook that everybody knows exactly where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. But it's so detailed and so based on timing and spacing that it could be Karabon doing the back cut off of the screen, or it could be Mullins doing the back, doing the cut. But or are they flowing into a get, or are they flowing into a ball screen? He's got that scripted out. Painter's very similar in that approach too, with the solid set concepts that he runs. This, on the other hand, is more like we're going to go into this action, we're going to this, out of this alignment, these actions, and okay, if the defense is here, we're going to curl it, we're going to flare it. So let's just go ahead. I'm going to add the video to the stage, and we're going to start early in the season. And I wanted to kind of start here because something, Mike, you had mentioned this earlier about how they use Tucker DeVries at Drake and for that limited time at West Virginia. And this is first game of the season. Kind of watch what Tucker did here. And 5 out. And you see, they can't get him the first time, back to the second. As you guys saw that, what do you guys, early on, I just see a quick shot, right? I see an action, and basically it's a screen and a rescreen to get a quick shot on that situation. I'm going to jump in a little bit on that one.
Go ahead, Tony. I'll let you go.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah, I think that, like you mentioned, it looked a little clunky to start, and with that, was it a 3-man action?
Yeah.
You mind running it again, Bob, just to kind of look.
Yeah, it was a kind of point. It was kind of like a point or the Princeton stuff where you have triple on a side and the guard goes down, right, to start it.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you got your.
Yep.
Okay.
They're holding the corners.
Yeah, looks rescreen and into the flare. You're definitely stretching the defense and trying to get them to make a decision on that flare there. But I think part of that is Tucker DeVries just making really smart reads. Like he goes for the pin down, Conaway comes up, then he comes off that flare action. Guy chases or goes underneath, so he stops and pops.
That what you see what DeVries did West Virginia is very similar in terms of like where he has his 5, because oftentimes he would have this 5 sort of like floating around like the 18-foot circle and trying to basically serve as like a permanent screener for either DeVries or the other guard coming off. So that's pretty common, I think, in DeVries' offense, is always kind of having the big, effectively either being like the screener or the slit man, on the screen action.
Yeah, that's a very difficult action when any screen to screener is difficult. But typical screen to screener is cross screen. You talked about flex. You screen. You have a back cut and then a down screen, right? Screen to screener. But that was a basic screen to screener. And they do that. I don't know what your terminology is, but when Conaway goes to screen for DeVries, he just kind of wraps around and screens back for Conaway, right? And then he comes off a flare. So they're trying to force the defense to try to figure out what they're doing and then bait the defense into being out of position and hit that guy on a flare. Early in the season, that stuff worked, and then later on, you're seeing defenders just stay real tight to all of the offensive threats were the ghost screens, they've run some horns where they would go off of DeVries' side and then he would flare off of the horns. Same concept kind of that we just saw in that last film. That works until they saw that we're scoring, and then they're just going to lock up on that and dare you to take the slip or take it inside.
So, in many respects, those striking actions you saw as that first thing became a softening action, and they could go into something else. And that's where I'm going to run the next one. Is that this was an example of a set that they ran frequently to start games, and we're going to run the bad result than the good result. And this is just basically a simple, just kind of a simple handoff from the pinch, from the Kentucky game. Well, I don't think we've seen this one in a while, but. What you see happening here is it's again 1-4, ball goes to DeVries, pitches to Connerway, and then he makes a bad read. But what you'll see in that, I always find this one interesting. I'm watching what happens off of that Iverson cut with Sicily, and then watching Dorn. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to note is all of that looks like it's false action to get Connerway going on the strong side and get him underneath. I'm guessing they didn't think that they'd switch that or something, get him downhill and occupy the help side on the weak side. But what I would note is that Indiana has run that exact Iverson action, but Sicily twists it and goes downhill to the rim, and they hit him there. And so all this that's decoy action, and then they're really setting the pin down to get Dorn open on the three. I'm guessing if Tucker keeps.
Well, that was part. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, and a lot of times, too, you're seeing, like, Kentucky in this they're very tight on the shooter opposite, but if you have someone sticking in help, towards the lane, you've seen DeVries rifle that ball across the court for a three. I think that happened in UCLA quite a bit with UCLA playing a little more help and not so tight on the shooters. But I really like the action with DeVries catching it here in the pinch post because I think that's just again, this is an example of some of these concepts and actions. You said, Sicily can twist, or I call that a wrap, if you would, or then they can set this staggered double or a double here. You've seen some action off those staggers, Tony, where DeVries will be the first screener, and the guy will curl, the cutter will curl, and then DeVries will come off a single. You saw that, I think, when he was at West Virginia, too. And that, again, is what you said is whether we're softening the defense or moving the defense, you're trying to put the defense in a bind so where they're not knowing where the attack is going to come from. And in this situation, he got a clean layup, but he was contested and then threw the ball away.
And a lot of it also was, again, had DeVries made that read kind of in the middle, because when I show I'm going to show the exact same set from a couple weeks earlier. Yeah, I mean, that, 10's rotating down so quickly. At that point, Connerway could have stopped on two, or DeVries, if he just holds it for just a moment, or they delay that handoff just a bit, just on some timing stuff. It's early in the season. You may be able to see that Dorn gets open for that three. But yeah, just got caught in no man's land.
Two on the ball is generally you've got an advantage somewhere, and you want to
do now.
Advantage at that
but
point.
you watch the exact same set from a week earlier, open the game, and that's where the read was. That read at that moment was basically sitting on and that's kind of an example of IU running some sets earlier in the season. Here's another one they used to like to run a lot of, and this is the stagger, that stagger action going off to get Wilkerson open for a three. Really simple.
Yeah, it's just a little handoff action, action, and then taking the ball away, and then I think he can come off a screen on that weak side. Like he really sets a start. They ran it several times, I think maybe Kansas State too or something, where Wilkerson can come off that screen. He doesn't have to cut through the lane. But if he reads it, then he can go off that staggered floppy action or baseline action like you just saw.
And kind of similar, not exactly the same. But if you see where he set up there and watch how he, after the catch, kind of where he goes with it.
And that, honestly, that looks like Wilkerson's decision to come off that single first stagger or coming off the double on the weak side based on how the defense is playing him. It looked like the defense was top locking him, so that was his read to come onto the weak side there.
So for those of you
plant that foot, plant that foot and go underneath the basket and come off that staggered double.
For those of you who are doing this while you're on your treadmill right now and not actually watching it on video, we just saw the same stagger that Wilkerson ran, except he curled off of it with a drive, and then Miles sets a screen for Doran coming up top. And Tony's, you're talking that is basically triggered by looking at the read and realizing that when Wilkerson saw where the defense was, he's able to get it downhill and get the play. And so, but again, that's also a couple months later where you're not just running the same set over and over and over again and expecting the same result. And that's what kind of that evolution, like, you know, when you watch the Kentucky to the Minnesota, as teams scout you, now you have your own built-in counters to it. This was one, I think, this is the one. So you were talking a minute ago, Coach, about kind of the screen and the rescreen. This is actually an ATO set that they ran against Kentucky. And I'm going to describe this as you guys are watching it. So ball goes to Sicily out on the wing. They get DeVries on a high stagger. And then they basically run Wilkerson, then Conaway. Wilkerson gets an open three.
That's what I was talking about.
Was that like, was that a twirl action?
It was a twirl action.
Yeah. The guy comes off. That's what I was talking about with that staggered. The guy curls, and Wilkerson was part of the screening action at first, and then he ends up coming off the screen. Again, I think that's pretty effective.
Yeah.
Anytime you can get Wilkerson that wide open, you did something right because defense is keying on him.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, you're right. Because see, so Wilkerson's setting it for Conaway here, right? Mm-hmm. So Wilkerson is the first screener, and
Conaway just twirls.
He curls. Yeah, that's that twist. You twist right into the Wilkerson's defender is what that is.
Mm-hmm. And somebody.
I like that.
A good friend of ours who's the godfather who's maybe responsible for our whole meal here tonight, made the observation that he heard the term fish hook. And as we tried to figure out what fish hook is, that might be fish hook. That they may be calling. It
could be.
Yeah, that to me seems like the closest thing where they're doing a lot of that, and they can do a lot off that fish hook because you could also curl it too if you need to. So
I like it.
Yeah.
Moving on. Okay, I was going to watch. It's not really watching the defense, watching it going in transition. So the first one I gave you was kind of an example of a set, like the couple sets that they were running, but this is something organically that they did out of transition. I feel like it's organic out of the actions, and so Enright's taking it and can't get it, gets blocked, deflected out to DeVries, and at this point Wilkerson they're still kind of free forming, and at 17 on the shot clock they kind of get into some sort of action. DeVries up top. Little kind of a inverted ball screen, which we thought we would see a lot out of those. And as it's moving down, as Enright's driving, you notice DeVries is going as the ball's kind of reversed to that side. Enright's driving, and there's DeVries wide open in the corner for a 3-point shot. And Coach, this is your point about when Coach DeVries said about running offense in that second half. That was really good offense run by Indiana there. But I think a lot of it was less that you weren't talking about doing it out of a set necessarily, but they were able to organically flow into that action.
Well, Alexis flared the shooter to the corner, DeVries to the corner on that drive, which is effective. And they also move when they do feed the post. They do some movement there as well to make it hard to find the kick out or whatever else. We don't post it a whole lot. Or Indiana doesn't post it a whole lot, but I'm a big fan of flare screens. I always have loved them, whether it's off the top, horns flare, where your ball screen into a flare screen, or I think that flare screen to the corner is effective. Now, it's a weird passing angle, isn't it, Tony? And it's a hard pass to make. You gotta have people who can see it, read it, and hit it in the right time. But man, that's effective going to the corner. But that Bob, that's what I was talking about in the Illinois game in the first couple segments, and I don't know if you have it on film here, where they ran that same concept, but it wasn't off of a drive. It was that guard on guard flare. I love the flare screens.
Yeah, to me that action has gotten popularized the last couple of years. I know the Memphis Grizzlies, they're driving. Whenever they're driving, let's say it's to the right, they're calling it a fan. And they're moving like the fan. We drill it every day in practice because it's so hard to guard, especially when you got somebody that can get downhill. They're trying to figure out, do I go help on the ball? Do I go, I'm not supposed to help off a ball side corner. My guy's now going ball side corner. Like, it's putting the defense's mind in a blender when you do that ball side corner flare. So I love it too. And then the screeners guys going, well, shoot, I got to go help over the top. Now you got to slip right to the rim. Like, just really good stuff.
Well, and you're really breaking up the help, which is kind of the whole point of softening action
Yep.
in the first place. Is you're breaking up tags, you're breaking up help, you're moving the low guy high, the high guy low, and it creates attack angles that you're seeing in those types of situations. And I think that IU has been incredibly, without really a whole lot of downhill attack, like true downhill Elliott Cadeau level attack, IU has been able to figure out how to get those looks with those types of situations.
Yeah.
Another one for the Kentucky game. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Before
I was going to say that, you think about going back like a decade or so, like, a lot of Calipari offense. The assumption in dribble drive is that, okay, the point guard is going to get by his man and is effectively going to have, odd man advantage. Oftentimes the shooters that were, either in the corners or, within like the 180-degree view of the point guard would basically stay still in a lot of cases. Because that was like just the easier pass to make. It's like, okay, you have a stationary shooter that you're going to be going to, and once his man comes off him, you hit him at that stationary point. Now with a lot of these modern offenses, you are starting to see guys kind of like just moving off into a spot where the help is basically completely out of range. So it's very interesting to see that IU's starting to adopt more of that off-ball movement for the shooters, basically going not staying in one position, and also just the fact that a lot of these screens are being set with like so these flare screens. They're being set as the ball is being passed, not when the ball is just being dribbled. And so you notice how many times, like compared to the pass, where okay, a screen is set, a guy's coming off, then the pass is made. So the screen comes first and then the pass. So often now you see really good teams that have really good shooters in modern offense. The screen is being set as the ball is basically in the air for the pass, and the guy's catching it, and basically the help defense or the guy that's closing out is running into somebody's screening from the other team. So I think that's another sort of neat innovation that would ask fans to kind of watch IU going down the stretch. How many times the screen is being set as the pass is happening?
Right. And I would just kind of throw this out too, that, when you're mentioning that, Mike, the whole idea of like the J Wright interchange that we talked that years ago was kind of set up, that all you had to do was you didn't have to screen it, just moved bodies. And it makes for more effective. What we're going to go into now is a little bit about Lamar Wilkerson, who's definitely come upon the scene, and kind of watching him. And this is a design back cut. Alexis has it at the top of the key. And you're just seeing that, okay, he's full deny, and then he just back cuts. And when he gets there, he just kind of goes up with it, doesn't really have a whole lot of control of his body. Looking at a couple months later against USC, kind of a similar type of situation. This time it's Enright taking DeVries from the wing. And the subtle difference on Lamar Wilkerson is playing off 2 feet. That the biggest thing he's added that's made him so much more effective, in my estimation, attacking the rim, is that instead of just trying to do, like, we've stopped doing layups where we've stopped doing 1 foot layups. I've drilled in my kids, okay, stop the 1 foot stuff. You know how to do those. You can do them on full court stuff, but we're teaching these kids on every stop to end in a jump stop. Because when I look at the differences in attacking as to whether or not you are getting a 1 foot layup that's wide open versus a jump stop and a step through, I mean, we've all done the math, guys. I mean, how many times do you really see a 1 foot layup unless it's a breakaway?
We called those Nova pivots at Western when we were coaching at Western, because Jay Wright would teach that. You think who was it, Brunson or not? Was it Brunson? Did he go to Nova? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, they all did. All those guys.
They all did.
Brunson mastered. They all did on the Knicks, right? Brunson mastered that, right? And not only can you score and take hits when you do that, but you can pivot and find your shooters. As Tony was saying, when you run that fan or you flare guys to the corner, you become both a scorer and a passer, which, again, I love Enright, and I like Connerway. And Enright's getting a lot of assists lately, which is by design of getting the ball in the lane. But, boy, if you had a point guard that can score in the lane and dish in the lane, now you've become even more potent as a basketball team. And that's just an example of a slight upgrade in those actions. But playing off 2 feet, Bob, I think is one of the most important things. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's fundamental, right? Fundamental. And it's not the flashy thing. The flashy thing is to fly out of bounds and throw it one-handed and do those things. But if you can really get your squad to be playing off 2 feet, I think the offense becomes more efficient no matter what you're running.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, we
one quick thing about Enright. I was going to bring. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say
Go ahead, Tony.
At GCA we're given an extra point in our drills if you play off 2 and score it. Like you play off 2 and score it, should be 2 points. You're getting 3 in practice. Like
good point.
That's how much we're emphasizing. We want to play off 2.
I'm going to write that down. I love that. we may start doing that. But I'm gonna throw this out real quick with Enright. That if you look at his ball screen numbers, like if you look at actions out of ball screens, that's ball screens with passes, where he's the ball handler. His numbers are 98th percentile in the country on points per possession. But his scoring, level 1 stuff, is at 0.5 per possession. Where he's getting it is a lot off of hitting cutters and hitting guys on spot ups. So to Coach's point, he's elite at those first 2 areas. And if you get a guy who's good in the first area who replaces him next year, it adds a whole new dynamic to the offense.
Right. Yeah. And that's not being any critical of Enright. He's doing what he can, and he's doing it well.
Right, exactly. And I kind of remember what I was doing here, but I'll know it when I see it. So as Connorway's bringing it up, you have Bailey going 5 out, and then this is a zoom action. So that was just a very base zoom action where zoom is where you basically send the guy up high to basically set a down screen, wrap the guy. It's kind of page action is kind of the reverse where the screener comes up and takes the handoff. But in this situation, he takes the handoff, gets a wide open 3-point shot early in the season. We're going to watch another zoom here in a second, again, against USC. I think it's a zoom. So at this point, it's DeVries up top, shot fakes, and then you see them kind of setting it up here with Enright back there. And now you see DeVries is going to set it. Or no, that's more of the Peja.
Yep.
But now watch how Wilkerson just basically wraps through that after a couple softenings. Comes off 2.
Off 2 there too, yep.
But it's also just at this point, it's like we used to, and I don't want to talk about the past too much, but there was a lot of times where I think we felt like IU was robotic over the last, I even say 10 years. I even go the last year or 2 of Crean at times where, and even periodically through the Crean era, there were times where it felt like they were robotic and overly programmed. That's one where, again, you're stagnant. And I don't see much stagnation there, guys.
Yeah, well, one thing I notice now versus, let's say, the past 2 regimes, and I'm sure you guys have seen this as well, in any screen action you see in the DeVries offense, the big is always a threat to slip. Mm-hmm. And I can really think back, from Woodson and also Archie, how many times you would see like a screen action, let's say Woody would used to like to run staggers for McKenzie and Baco. You saw that a lot. I can't remember really one time where Renew slipped off of something like that and got a wide open layup. And you've seen that multiple times under DeVries where either Alexis gets a lob or Reed Bailey gets a layup. At the rim. And so I think that optionality within a lot of the actions is like what's really kind of stands out. And also, like you said, Bob, it kind of eliminates the robotic nature of the offense because guys are reading things in real time. It's like, oh man, they're overplaying on the shot now, but the big is actually open because they overcommitted. So that kind of thing is really what differentiates between robotic offense and sort of free-flowing offense.
And I would imagine, Mike, what's happening. Yeah, what's happened is what Tony does. He's emphasizing playing off 2 feet by adding a point. I imagine if you go to DeVries practices, he's emphasizing. I'm so old, the terminology is past me now, but we used to have cutter and second cutter. Mm-hmm. We didn't call them screeners. You're the second cutter. You're setting a screen first, but then you're a second cutter. So, you can emphasize stuff as a coach by adding points to a drill, or by emphasizing something, or by, renaming something in a way that makes it, you call a kid a screener, unless you're Sloan 45 back in my days, right? You're like, dang, I got to set screens. I'm never going to get the girl because this guy's coming off a screen and scoring, right? But if you're a second cutter and and then you sell it like you're going to be the most open because people are going to go off the screen and you're going to slip and score. I would imagine there's a lot of emphasis in what DeVries does in that optionality, Mike, that you were talking about that you see, and that's what has me excited about this team, regardless of results right now. Because I think that stuff wins basketball games eventually when you have everything going in the right direction.
So we're going to move on a little bit here to another one with Enright bringing it up here. And so you'll see there's a ball screen or basically a reject. And this is a very similar. Okay, so this is the one where we saw the same sort of action, and now Dorn's the driver. And this is, I think, one of the things that you were talking, Coach, a minute ago, right? Just the last second ago, about you're seeing diversity of action, but you're also seeing skill development. And we know Dorn has some places to grow. And this is an area where Dorn, again, coming off injury, did not have as much off season, I think, in conditioning, strength training, or skill development. But if you see what they did with Wilkerson, if they can do the same thing similarly with Dorn, as he attacks. And again, didn't play off 2, wasn't really as strong with it. And it's not really a criticism as much as it's an observation that he can get downhill. It's just the question is when he lands, what's happening? And I think that's an area of skill development that IU, because if you're listening, he goes off one, throws it hard off the backboard, and it looks like a play that you'd see kind of at a lower level because he's playing against higher level competition. I think he was at Elon last year, Mike. Or yes. Guys?
Yeah, it was at
so Elon. At Elon, he might be able to get away with that. At IU and Power 4 competition, playing as a tournament team, it's a little harder to get through. So we'll kind of go to another similar thing from the Illinois game. Enright centers it, and as they're going through it, little flare. Yeah. Oh, this is a post down. So as he's backing him down out of the post. That's straight up. That's an old ISO play. Basically, it's a post ISO play using your guard. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know what terminology some people use, but we call it a Barkley, where guard kind of gets into a post up if they think that they've got. We call it a protection plan. If you don't have the downhill drive, but you've got something else in your bag, and you've got the skill and the strength to be able to play that. There's not too many guys where you're going to live with that shot in college basketball, to be honest. But Wilkerson's one of them. He's a dude that's shooting, I believe he's 68% on mid-range this season. So, you equate that to points per possession. That's like a 1.3 point per possession shot. You're living with that. But, yeah, I mean, that just speaks to Wilkerson's skill set too, and that he's able to take that shot, because IU shot selection is very good. Oh, somebody else has a tornado warning too, it seems.
Yeah, I do. Give me just a second here. My Everbridge has not gone off yet. So we'll be monitoring the weather situation between Greenwood and Columbus, and if it goes through Trafalgar and misses both of us, we'll be on the air. So,
Bob, do you know what has Wilkerson done on I just think he's improved so much from the beginning of the year in attacking. We were talking maybe around the Louisville and the Kentucky game where Indiana needs another downhill guy. I remember talking about that in the show, and they're running that. They ran that action and gave him permission to go in there, and Barkley and make that shot, which, Tony, you're right. Like, we don't really want a whole lot of mid-range unless you can hit mid-range, right? And we're going to the place tomorrow of the greatest mid-range game that I've ever seen, the Schifino game, right? If you're hitting him, but he has back cut more. It started off with more back cuts, and I think DeVries put him into back cut situations to get him in the lane. Then it became more drives. Now it's becoming drive and pull up, and now you have a Barkley situation. So there's almost like 5 stages of improvement in Wilkerson's game in 1 year. But I don't know if he had that at Sam Houston and just wasn't doing that at the very beginning of IU, with all your numbers, or is that something that is solely due to player development while at IU?
I'll say, at least having watched him at San Houston State, good deal. He did some mid-range action, Coach, but I will say what's really different about him, at least what I notice, is that his lower body is much, much stronger at IU versus where he was last year at Sam Houston State. I've talked about it before, about his vertical. I mean, his vertical looks like it feels like it's about a foot more than what it was last year. I mean, he's able to elevate for rim attack now so much better than what he had last year. I mean, some of the dunks he's had this year, literally floored me, because I thought, my God, I didn't think he could even do that. And now in Bloomington, he's having that take place. So yeah, I definitely think it's true, Coach, that I don't know. You don't even know if it's happening almost like, week by week, month by month, that he's just getting much better even as he's staying within the program. But definitely, and I know coming into IU, that was not a strength of his. He really had to develop that as as time was going by.
Yeah, I just that's again, we're not in practice to see what's going on. Every coach has some sort of player development things going on. But you have seen improvement. I know Sisley's not playing an awful lot minutes right now, but Miles has come on. Dorn has come on. Probably getting healthy with those two guys helps a little bit. Enright's assist game has gone up, right? So you talk about schematic things like we're talking about tonight too, but a lot of it is, Alexis is another example of getting better within the season. So I think that's good stuff. So
yeah,
Mike, I think it's you and I, bud, as the weather in central Indiana has kind of forced guys into a safe area. We hope everyone is safe.
I think we might take a quick pause here, and then we'll try to see if we can get our pals back. I think Bob is jumping back on here in a second. So there he is.
So we're going to take a break and come right back on X's and Joe's.
Great.
Final buzzer sounds in Bloomington. The conversation starts here. The assembly call is IU basketball. Live post-game shows, smart midweek breakdowns, and no empty hot takes. Jared Morris, Coach Brian Tonsoni, Andy Bottoms, and Ryan Phillips dissect lineups, sets, and recruiting so you know what really happened and what it means for the Big Ten season, March, and beyond. Join the live chat on YouTube, then catch the podcast on Spotify and Apple. Just search Assembly Call and be part of Hoosier Nation's most trusted post-game tradition.
And welcome back to X's and Joe's. I'm Bob Moats with Mike Wiemuth and Coach Tonsoni. Coach Adragna is under a tornado warning, as I am too, but I know I have a few minutes so we can quickly kind of wrap this up and call this part 1 of episode 53. What is Coach DeVries actually running? And then we can kind of resume some of this stuff a little later and maybe retool a bit here in a few days. But I think you get kind of the general gist of it. Kind of that a lot of what we were just kind of talking about with these first looking at actions, looking at different skill sets, there's a lot to look forward to. And I mean, I think there's been some critique about, I use hunting for the 3 too much. But then you look at the number 1 offense in the country in Illinois, and our 3-point attempts and their 3-point attempts are basically even. You look at Michigan, which is number 4 in the country, I think, in offense. Obviously, Alabama. Michigan's over 40%. Alabama's at 50%. So some of our more efficient offenses in the country are really hunting the 3-point shot. and using the mid-range, if anything, to somewhat keep it honest and making sure you're taking high-quality mid-range shots versus trying to scheme an offense to go take 18 to 20 footers. Thoughts as to, I know, Mike, the term shot selection is the thing you hate the most.
Yes. Yeah, the Taliban and shot selection.
Thoughts on that real quick. I mean, as you guys are kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I think what you'll find is that, and you're right, Bob, in terms of like what you see the better teams and better offenses in college basketball. Yeah, the 3-point shot is central to it. Obviously, there's two parts of that: having quality 3-point shots and quality alternative shots to the three, which, again, you hope there are as many layups as you can possibly get, or as many dives to the basket that result in a free-throw attempt. So, and as we've been saying, through this pod, that once IU does have a little bit more versatility in terms of some of their players' capabilities, more guys that can drive and shoot at the same time, bigs that can actually do a little bit more lob catching when they are doing slips to the rim off of screen actions. Once you get those kind of players that you see on Michigan and Arizona and some of the other better teams, once I starts to get closer to that kind of level of a roster, then you're going to see a lot of things open up, and all the efficiency numbers are going to get better. And I don't think people are going to complain so much about, IU taking as many threes, provided that more of those threes that they're taking are going to be more quality. They're going to be more wide open. It's not going to be Lamar having to maybe take a 25-footer with a 6'8" guy, closing out on him pretty hard. So I think it's just, there's some nuance to all this in terms of, how this is going to play out. And so I think, like I said, we'll see next year how this is going to evolve for IU once they do have some different options within their roster.
Coach, thoughts?
Yeah, I think the schemes are good, the concepts are good, and what happens is you're running up against great coaches that can scout and do things, and you have players that maybe are a little more physical or a little more height, and what that does is disrupt those great schemes, right? And so that's where roster construction comes in, and that's the thing, again, guys, that I'm pleased with, is that you build a good house with the foundation. And I'm seeing that from a coaching perspective. I'm seeing the foundation. Now, you need to have good siding, and you need to have a good roof, and you need to have all those other things when you build a house, and that's going to be the challenge for Coach DeVries and his staff going forward. But you see the foundation of modern basketball, Mike. I think you used that term earlier in the podcast, of some things that you see when I go watch Michigan and Purdue. You see some of those things being done. And we haven't talked a lot about defense too, but they definitely have a defensive philosophy of taking away the three and giving up some pull-up twos and some the math game of 2 and 3, and that suits my personal preference. But I think that is a winning formula, and not all winning programs do those types of things. But I will say that the player development, the schemes, the adjustments that I've seen game to game and in game say that this program is headed in the right direction. It obviously needs to happen with roster and all of that, but these kids are laying it on the line. They play hard. It's not no one goes into a game wanting to miss a shot, right? And sometimes that just happens, or turn the ball over. I like the overall feel. I'm not sure I like 17-9 and losing to Minnesota. I'm never going to like a loss. But man, I enjoy this more than I have the last 8 years of basketball, to be brutally honest. And maybe there's a little wishful thinking in that, that we do this for a living. We want the program to be well, so you're hoping that what we see is going to happen. But I really like I really like what we're seeing overall.
On that note, I see Tony's back up here. Back up here, literally. I mean, I'm going to be heading down in about 10 minutes, I think. So we're wrapping this puppy up. Without knowing too much what we're talking about at this point, like we were just talking a little bit about hunting, basically systemically looking for 3-point shots. IU with the rest of the country, high-level offenses, with the exception of Arizona, being a team that's really scheming to get those, preventing the opponent from shooting the three. anything that you're really encouraged by, additionally that you can think of, like really what gives you hope with with an upgraded roster, much like what Michigan did in the offseason, or Louisville did in the offseason, that thinks that this could be, as Coach Tonsoni just said, the foundation of the house.
Yeah,
building a strong one.
I'm kind of just reiterating what we've talked about, right? That Indiana is playing out of modern concepts. They're scheming around their deficiencies. They're scheming around what they're good at, too. They're scheming counters as they're being well scouted. And so, like, all of that, right, sounds pretty elementary in nature. Like, you'd think that's should do, but it's the actual scheme, right? Like, it's complicated to guard. It's hard to know what they're going to do because it's conceptualized. And so it's why you see, Indiana gets open guys. It's why you see a wide open Lamar Wilkerson in the best scouted conference in the country, because they're scheming things well. They're countering things. What the defense thinks is coming, they do something different. Like, all of that makes them extremely difficult to guard. And defensively, without a rim protector, they're still contesting what the other team's doing. They're scouting things well. Like, defense is somewhere they've struggled a bit this year at certain times, especially on the rebounding front. But I can see the bones there of you give them a rim protector and a dude that's going to rebound. Like, that defense is going to be pretty nasty. And so that part of it is exciting too.
And I'm going to interject this real quick on rebounding, because metrically they actually aren't as bad as what they appear when they're giving up batch offensive rebounds. For a team that is as physically outmatched at times as they are, with the length this coach was talking about, they do a pretty good job of cleaning up the boards. Like, they may in the first few possessions get beat, and then they figure out, I would just say, player contact schemes to get the ball, and they're good at making those adjustments. So I would agree, there's a lot to like. So on that note, knowing that my sirens may be going off here in another minute, and Tony's will as well, and Coach, I think you're going to be okay tonight. I think.
At
Mike,
least from the weather. We can't predict the future, Coach.
No, we don't know what else, what other fresh hell awaits. Mike, you'll be dealing with this probably tomorrow. Or
yes, exactly. Pretty much whatever you guys get, I get, the day later. So I'm glad I'm getting this preview now.
So yeah, congratulations, and we won't schedule time tomorrow to do this. So thank you both for coming on. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome,
Tony.
Absolutely.
I will say, play well rest of the season. Coach, play well, and as you're now getting close to the 60-day notice here, as you're sitting at that point. And
put IU in the 7 seed. I don't. Can you pull the strings?
Yeah. I wish I could. I do. I try really hard, right?
They're about 10 possessions. They could have been at 7 seed at about 10 possessions. I swear that's where I'm guessing it. All right. Well, on that note, those are thanks to Bob Thompson for the music here and the music here on the show, and to John Ringer at rigdesign.com for the logo and look of the show.
Yep. And this endless conversation was brought to you by the Back Home Network. Be sure to check out all the great BHN content, including the Assembly Call, Doing the Work, the Dribble Drive, Big Red Carpet, Sideline Stories, Football Weather, and Crimson Cast on YouTube and backhomenetwork.com. So until next time, I'm Mike Wiemuth.
I'm Bob Moats.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe, you folks in Indiana.
Friday.
Duck and cover.